Tonight, could a deadly Ebola outbreak in Africa put Americans at risk? Animal Defenders International first broke this story on our show, claiming there's a business operating in Mauritius, which is an island off the coast of Africa, that is working on plans to supply wild monkeys to a proposed breeding facility in Hendry County, Florida. Now, in parts of Africa, Ebola, a deadly virus with no cure, has already killed 147 people. The World Health Organization says the virus is now limited to 2 African nations, but Doctors Without Borders has called this outbreak unprecedented. Critics are now asking, should our government, the U.S. government, be looking into whether or not there's a potential health risk if these monkeys are imported from this region of the world? ADI's undercover investigation in Mauritius videotaped what they call unimaginable cruelty. Workers swinging, screaming monkeys by the tails, monkeys tattooed while conscious, babies ripped from their mothers. This is some of the undercover video. And this video that you're seeing here is from the UK, and it shows some of the types of experimentation these wild monkeys could ultimately be subjected to, they and their offspring. Because monkeys are so intelligent, European Union doesn't even allow importing wild monkeys for experimentation. As we've reported, we cannot find a single government agency studying the risk of bringing these monkeys, these wild monkeys, into Florida. Straight out to Dr. Neil Barnard with the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. Dr. Barnard, is there a risk, or is it something where we should say, there's no risk, we don't have to worry about this?
Well, not only is there a risk, Jane, we've already seen dangerous viruses come in, specifically in monkeys, from overseas. Keep in mind, these animals are quarantined, but that is no guarantee at all that viruses will be identified. In a suburb of Washington, D.C., Reston, Virginia, there was first a case of an Ebola virus that was later named the Reston virus, then another case, and another case, all of these showing that Ebola and its relatives can easily come in here. Then in Madison, Wisconsin, 32 monkeys had to be killed because they were found to be carrying tuberculosis. And in another case in Michigan, there was a virus called herpes B that killed a lab worker. Where are these coming from? They're coming from animals imported from overseas, and once you're looking outside our borders, all bets are off.
When asked about the proposed facility by us, everybody seemed to be pointing to another agency. The Hendry County commissioners claim, aside from local zoning, they're not involved. They said talk to the feds. Florida's governor, Rick Scott's office, said, well, talk to U.S. Fish and Wildlife. U.S. Fish and Wildlife said, oh, we're not involved. The USDA says they'll only monitor once it's built. Quote, we have not received a request for a facility in Florida. If the facility is built, the licensee registrant is responsible for following the AWA regulations. So my question to you, Dr. Barnard, who's watching, and should somebody be looking at whether or not this is a wise idea?
I feel your frustration, and it's well merited, because the truth is nobody is looking. You're absolutely right. The people in Hendry County basically wanted to make sure that it was sort of like a construction site, that their use of water would be okay. They were treating it as if it might be an ordinary agricultural project. The USDA isn't looking at it so far as we know. Nobody's looking at this, but the risks are real.
Well, what would you tell the governor of Florida?
Well, first of all, I think they should reopen the whole process by which this was approved. If the local citizenry realized that thousands of animals are going to be brought in, keep in mind they're talking about housing up to 3,000 monkeys brought in from Mauritius, possibly other countries, and that they're right next to, or very in close proximity to, a residential area, and the possibility of infection is huge, they should reopen that process, take another look, and I would encourage them not to approve this.
Listen, the government's job is to look at issues like this. We have called repeatedly. Not only can we not find out what companies and confirm what companies are behind all this, because the applicant for the water permits is reportedly a storefront. We cannot reach a number. We cannot find out who the corporate officers are. That doesn't seem to bother anybody. Everybody is like nothing to see here. And yet, Isn't that the role of government? 10 seconds, Dr. Barnard.
Well, it doesn't stop there. The animals are going to be in Florida as a holding facility. From there, they will be shipped out willy-nilly to any state in the United States. It really ought to be stopped. It ought to be stopped there.
Thank you, Dr. Neil Barnard. We're going to stay on top of this story. Who is watching in our government? Governor Rick Scott, Hendry County commissioners, who's looking at this? Nancy next.